Hey guys, today we are looking at completing the square, determining when we complete the square and then how to actually complete the square and what that means. So far we've learned a few different methods to solve. In 1.1 and 1.2 we learned how to graph both with and without a calculator. In 1.3 and 1.4 we learned factoring, so when we already had that perfect equation that factored out nicely. And in 1.5, we use the square roots method when we only have that x squared term, so that x term wasn't there. Today, we're looking at completing the square. So this would be something that would not factor. So when you have an equation in standard form that does not factor, or we would use completing the square to put into vertex form to solve using the square roots method. So what does it mean to complete the square? Well, completing the square is where we're working with this c value to turn it into a perfect square. So x squared plus 10x plus 25, 25 is 5 squared. And what that does for us is then the thing that goes where this question mark is would be a 5. So this would be x plus 5 quantity squared. That's what that would factor down into. So to do that, we have to do a little manipulating of the problem. So if we have x squared plus 12x, what would be the perfect square that would go into there? Well, if you go back to this slide before, if you notice that 5 is 1/2 of that b value term. That's going to be the same thing that we see here. So if we have 12x as our b value, then here we're going to put 6, which is half, squared, so 36. This one would be a -8, and when we square that, we get a positive 64. So in general, if we have x squared plus bx, then we're going to take that b over 2 and square it, and that's what goes up here. So we take our b value, divide it by 2, and we square it. And that's what ends up being right there. This would be a great place to stop the video so you can get this copied down if you don't have the notes printed out. So steps to completing this square. The first thing we need to do is make sure the x squared and the x terms are on one side. We're going to move our numbers to the other side. We're going to check the x squared term. If a equals 1, we're good to go. We can move on. If a does not equal 1, we need to factor out a. Then we can complete the square by dividing b by 2 and then square that answer. We need to add that value to both sides of the equation so that we don't change the equation. At that point, we can factor and then we can solve using the square roots method. Okay, so that sounds like a lot of steps. Let's go through this process together. So solve by completing the square. First step, move that constant over to the other side. So to move it to the other side, I would add 8. So I'm going to leave this as x squared plus 6x on the left. And I'm going to leave a blank here for what I add in because it helps me to remember. So I have a positive 8 on the right, and then I need to add that same constant in on the right. You don't have to do it that way, but that helps me. So now I take my b value of 6, I divide it by 2, and I'm going to square it. So 6 divided by 2 is 3, and it's still squared, so 9 is what goes in that blank. So then you're going to be able to factor that equation, or the expression on the left. So x squared plus 6x plus 9. Two numbers that add up to 6 and multiply to 9 would be positive 3. 3 plus 3 is 6. 3 times 3 is 9. And it should match that value that we found. So this is x plus 3 quantity squared. That equals 8 plus 9 is 17. So now we have a much nicer problem to solve because now we can solve using our square roots method. So we can take the square root of both sides. So then we have x plus 3 is equal to plus or minus radical 17. We subtract 3 from both sides. And I'm going to leave that 3 or that negative 3 out front. So I have negative 3 plus or minus radical 17. And that's our answer to this first completing the square problem. All right. Let's look at another. So now would be a great time for you to pause and try this on your own, see if it makes sense. Don't worry about the y equals. You can set it equal to 0 for the moment. So x squared minus 4x plus 7. We'll deal with some that are y equals later on. So if you want to try this on your own, go for it. I'm going to walk you through it. So you can either be checking your answer with me or walk through another one with me right now. So I have a negative 4 over 2 is my b value. And I'm going to get negative 2 and square it. So I get 4. Now, I need to also move those things over. So I have minus 4x plus the blank, and we just figured out what goes in that blank, equals, and that'll be a negative 7 when I move it over to the other side, plus that blank. The blank that we just found is positive 4. And remember, it's always going to be what's inside here is what we factored to. So x minus 2 quantity squared is equal to negative 7 plus 4 is negative 3. Okay, so now we can start solving this problem. So take the square root of both sides. So I end up with x minus 2 on the left. And then I have plus or minus square root of negative 3 would be I radical 3, right? Don't forget about those imaginary numbers. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So then I have x equals a positive 2 plus or minus I radical 3. All right, so now we have 5x squared minus 10x plus 29 equals 0. So think back to your steps. It said if you have not, or if the a value is greater than 1, we have to factor it out. First thing I'm going to do is move over that 29. So I have 5x squared minus 10x plus blank equals 29, or sorry, negative 29 when I move that over, plus blank. Okay, so now I'm factoring out a 5 from here. So I end up with x squared minus 10x, still plus the blank here. But then on the right side, whatever I'm adding to that blank, if you look, really, it's 5 times whatever goes in here. So I'm going to put plus 5 times this blank, whatever I get there, just so I don't forget. Again, whatever helps you remember, use it. Okay, so, never mind here. I hope you caught my mistake. This shouldn't be a 10x anymore. This should be a minus 2x. Since I factored out that 5, 10 divided by 5 gives us 2. We still have that minus sign there. Okay, so now we have negative 2 over 2 that we square, so we get negative 1 squared, which is 1. So I'm going to put a 1 here, and then this will be 5 times 1 when I add it over to the other side. So I still have my 5 out front, but then I have x minus 1, remember it's coming from here, quantity squared, is equal to negative 24, because I did negative 29 plus 5 times 1. Now we're ready to solve. We do have an extra step there to solve because we want to divide out that 5. So I get x minus 1, still quantity squared, equals negative 24 over 5. Now since I just have this squared, I can take the square root of both sides. So I get x minus 1 is equal to plus or minus the square root of negative 24 over 5. We do want to go ahead and multiply that. So I get I out front, but I have the square root of 24 over the square root of 5. I do need to multiply that by square root of 5 over square root of 5. So then I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So I get x equals 1 plus or minus I. And then 24 times 5 is the square root of 120 over 5. And then we need to decide, can we reduce the square root of 120? And there is a 4 in there that will come out. So x equals 1 plus or minus square root of 4 is 2I radical 30 over 5. So sometimes our answers aren't going to look so pretty, but it's an easier method to solve here. All right, another one for you to try. If you'd like to pause the video here. So again, I'm going to go ahead and make this 2x squared minus 4x minus 7 equals 0 since we're solving. For now, we will get into completing the square with that being a y equals. And then I'm going to move it over. Now I can take a 2 out here, so I have x squared minus 2x. And let's do it again. So x squared minus 2x plus blank. And then whatever's on the right side, I actually have to multiply by 2 when I put it in that blank. So then I have negative 2 over 2, quantity squared, which is negative 1, quantity squared, which is 1. So I'm going to put a 1 in both of those spots. And then I have 2x minus 1, quantity squared, equals 9. So then from here, I'm solving, I'm going to divide by 2. So x minus 1 quantity squared is equal to 9 over 2. I'm going to take the square root of both sides, so x minus 1 is equal to plus or minus square root of 9 over square root of 2. I'm going to go ahead and multiply that by radical 2 over radical 2. And so then I add 1 to both sides, so I get x equals 1 plus or minus. Square root of 9 is just 3, and I have radical 2 over radical 2 times radical 2 is 2. So there's your answer for that one. Alright, if it's asking you to convert to vertex form by completing this square, I'm going to leave the y in here this time because we're not actually solving, we're just converting to vertex form. But I am still going to move that 3 over. So I'm going to have y minus 3 plus the blank that I need to add in is equal to x squared plus 3x plus the blank that I'm adding in. So then here I have 3 over 2 quantity squared. So 3 over 2 squared is 9 over 4. So over here I'm adding 9 over 4, and over here I'm adding 9 over 4. So now, when I do that, one thing that helps me is I have 3, which is the same as 12 over 4. So I have minus 12 over 4 plus 9 over 4. So that would be y minus 3 over 4. If I simplify that, is equal to x plus 3 over 2, since that's positive, quantity squared. And then I want to get y by itself, so I'm going to add 3 over 4. So y is equal to x plus 3 over 2, quantity squared, plus 3 over 4. It now looks like we are in vertex form. So we're finished with that. Okay, and then the last thing I have is a word problem. So in firefighting, a good water stream can be modeled by y equals negative 0.003x squared plus 0.62x plus 3, where x is the water's horizontal distance traveled and y is its corresponding height. If a firefighter is aiming a good water stream into a building's window 25 feet above the ground, at what 2 distances can the firefighter stand from the building? Okay, so not going to necessarily use completing the square here because these are not pretty numbers. We could use it, but if the stream needs to go 25 feet above the ground, then here's what we're looking for. We have this parabola shooting out like this. And I know it's like that because I have a negative a value, but it needs to hit the window 25 feet above the ground. So what 2 distances can the firefighter stand? So maybe it's here and it's catching it at the 25 on the way up, or maybe it's here and it's catching it at 25 on the way down. Where are those 2 spots? And probably it's not going to be in the negative x value, poorly drawn graph there. But where are those 2 spots where it's hitting so that it hits the window? So we want to know where our y value is equal to 25. So in this case, I'm going to replace this 25 is equal to negative 0.003 x squared plus 0.62x plus 3. Now, you have 2 options here. You can either move the 25 over and set it equal to 0 and find the zeros in your graphing calculator. Or you can plug this into your y1 and this into your y2 and see where these 2 intersect. So you can do second calc 0 or second calc intersect. I would pause the video here and try to do those 2 things so that you get the practice there. You get as your answers then, either way you do it, x is approximately 161.12 feet, or x is approximately 45.48 feet. Let me know if this is something we need to go over, how to put that in your graphing calculator. If you really want to try it with completing the square, I'm happy to work with you on that. But if you do not get those answers, let me know and we will talk through those in class. So if you have any questions, feel free to come see me. Otherwise, I'll see you in class.